Welcome to the Clothes-Free Living Update, brought to you by the folks at clothesfreelife.com. We're excited to be able to bring you this regular feature of the clothes-free news from around the web, information related to clothes-free living, and much more. Now here's your host, Earl D.
And a happy Clothes-Free Friday to everyone listening. Welcome to another edition of the Clothes-Free Living Update. We're so glad that you are tuning in to listen to our broadcast today or tuning in later on demand. I want to just get us started today with a very powerful thought, a very powerful quote from an artist, Susanna Martin, who is just one of the most phenomenal artists out there, who is doing what I describe as photorealistic kinds of nude art, but just tremendous work. And she was quoted in an interview recently saying this: women look at the body in a very different way than men. And this is reflected in the differences between how female artists approach the nude and how male artists approach the nude. And I think that is a very, very powerful thought that I want to make the focus of our broadcast today. I want to talk about women's issues and how they are perceived differently in the naturist or nudist or clothes-free living communities differently by men and women, and how that affects the way that those communities are able to engage women in the naturist, nudist, or clothes-free living lifestyle. But before we go there, I want to touch on a couple of things that are coming up in this broadcast. So we're going to talk about the news. This is the Clothes-Free Living Update, episode number 18. Can't believe we're on 18 already, and plan to keep on rolling. Today is Friday, and it is a gorgeous day where I am. Hope you're enjoying your day as well. And we're going to be talking today about just some little news that's out there, not a ton of stuff happening, but one thing I want to bring to the attention of our listeners. And also, we're going to have part one of an interview. And it was such a great interview. I didn't want to chop it up into bits and pieces and pull stuff out. But it's a pretty long interview with Gingerbread from Breasts Are Healthy is her blog at wordpress.com. And she's been getting a lot of press in some online media outlets. In Vice website, magazine had an interview with her recently that got picked up by the New York Times. And she is a bare-chested equality advocate. And so we're going to be looking at that, listening to that interview with her, done by our contributing editor, Anthony Hart. And so we're going to be doing that in two parts. We'll do one part in this show, and then we'll do the follow-up next week in the show, because there's just so much good information there. And I didn't think we'd have enough time to give it justice. I didn't want to start chopping it up. So we're going to have that interview later on in the show. If you are listening to this podcast live, just want to let you know that you can get this on demand. You can get the podcast, the recorded audio from iTunes, on Stitcher, and also on several other outlets. We are on all the major outlets now. We're on Stitcher, which has apps for Android and iOS, so you can get it on your iPad or iPhone. And we're also on Google Play, which right now, that means you'd have to use the web or an Android device to access it. But you can get this, all our previous episode as well as the current episodes. Subscribe to them on all of those outlets, those audio channels. So you can hear the show on Stitcher on demand, and you can just go to Stitcher.com and search for Clothes Free Living Update, and that will pop up for you, and you can subscribe to that on Stitcher. You can do the same thing on iTunes. And there are links to this and all our shows on our web magazine site, clothesfreelife.com. So let's talk a little bit about some news that is out there in the blogosphere and in the news world in our Barely There news segment. So, there's something that came across the my desktop today about some folks who in Naturists in Ireland. In fact, they're members of the Irish Naturist Association, and they're trying to establish a foothold in terms of getting some clothing optional beaches in Ireland. And apparently they went to one particular beach. Apparently it's somewhat famous. It's the beach that Saving Private Ryan, the movie, was filmed on. And in that instance, they went onto that beach. No one complained. There was no issues of anyone in the community having a fit about it. But apparently the mayor and some other public officials, local politicians, are seriously upset about what's going on with this, and they are wanting to arrest and have threatened arrest of these naturists if they show up on that beach again. And I just give those folks a lot of credit. I'm sure there are a lot of cultural dynamics involved when in Ireland in terms of being in a naked. It's there's a lot of religious issues there, I suspect, and just being naked in public probably evokes a lot of that dynamic. And so these folks are really brave. I'm sure they could use and would like your support and just encouragement in what they're doing. The Irish Naturist Federation or Association has a Twitter page. Go on over there, search them out, and give them a shout out of support. You can also find us on Twitter at Live Clothes Free. You can find us on Tumblr, clothesfreelife.tumblr.com. And you can find us also on Google at Clothes Free Life. And you can listen to the podcast on YouTube at youtube.com/Clothes Free Life. So we're all over the place, as are many naturist organizations, and it's encouraging to just support them and connect with each other, network with each other, because if we don't do that, in the end, we're all going to lose. So want to talk about something that we just launched on the website today before I get into the meat of our topic for today, which is we launched this week on the website our call for submissions for our Sunday shorts. That's going to be a new feature that we're going to have on the website. It's actually going to be a podcast, and it's all about storytelling. What are Sunday shorts? Well, it's very simple. Sunday shorts are short stories. They're your stories. We want to hear about the stories of real people who are trying to live the clothes-free life. See, you don't know when you're on the internet, and you see all these pictures of people, typically females, women you don't know their stories. They're just pictures of nude or naked women. And we think it's really important for the human being behind this lifestyle to be represented. And so we're going to be receiving submissions of people just telling their stories about naturist life, about nudist practice and clothes-free living. So the Sunday shorts, we want them to be about 3 to 5 minutes long, not a whole hour long of stuff, just about 3 to 5 minutes long. We want you to record those on audio, and you can record them on your cell phone or your tablet or whatever, and then you're going to email them to us and just tell your stories. Each episode of the Sunday Shorts podcast is going to feature a particular theme. And for this first theme, since it's the first time, we're going to start with firsts. So think about this as you think about your questions. When was the first time I was clothes-free, ... fill in the blank. So you could talk about the first time you were clothes-free around other people. You could talk about the first time you were clothes-free for more than 24 hours. You can talk about the first time and tell us a story about the first time you were clothes-free outdoors, or the first time you went swimming clothes-free. So tell us your story in 3 to 5 minutes. Record it in either an MP3 or MP4A format. We'd prefer the MP3, but if MP4 is what you have, send that along in an email with a little background information about the story. You can use a pseudonym. You don't need to give us your real name. To contact@clothesfreelife.com. And it must at least include your name and email so that we can reach you if you need it. Once you submit that, you're giving us permission to edit and include in the Sunday Shorts podcast and put that up on our Clothes Free Life Radio website, as well as the Clothes Free Life site. And then stay tuned for the broadcasts of the Sunday Shorts show and listen along. Tell your friends that you're going to be featured. We'll let you know. And it should be fun to hear real stories about real experiences of people who are living the clothes-free life. So that's one of the things we wanted to share with you about that's happening on the website.
Planning your next clothes-free European vacation? Consider Britomartis Naturist Resort in Crete, the best nudist resort to enjoy your naturist holidays. Visit www.britomartis.com.
So I want to jump into this topic before we start with the interview in a few minutes, of women's issues and how they're addressed by the naturist, nudist, and clothes-free community. I'm observing something that I got to say, I'm not sure how. It's a little disturbing and concerning that, and I've been talking to some women and through some of the interviews that I've had with women who are leading in this area and of particular issues related to specifically to nudity or clothes-free life and women. I've noticed something, I've observed something, and it's wrapped up in that quote that I read from Susanna Martin at the beginning, that men and women approach this issue of nudity very differently. And it seems that so often men want to take the issue of women and nudity and women in naturism and women in terms of their own bodies being clothes free and put it into a particular frame that I'm not sure is the same frame that a woman would put that into. Our editor, contributing editor, Hantuni Hart, wrote a piece a few weeks back about about a week ago actually, about this whole idea of just having her own voice and being able to use her own voice when it comes to how she engages in the online space when it comes to being nude, naked, and it was titled "My Gaze, My Terms, My Story," and she brought in some other ideas about that people in the art world again are talking about how the female gaze and the male gaze is different when it comes to nudity, how we look at that. And I've seen some folks who are some guys on the internet and on Twitter in particular who say, yeah, I'm supporting top freedom and free the nipple. And then they post images that really seem almost voyeuristic in a way and don't seem to really, they really seem to cater to how men look at topless women rather than how women see themselves. And I guess maybe it's nothing, but I think there's a little bit of a concern there that men are trying to hijack this issue. They're trying to hijack the voice of women when it comes to top freedom, topless equality, and in general, how they choose to be able to present their bodies. And this is a tough issue. It's complex because I really had to do some soul searching around this because I've commented as a guy about Kim Kardashian and how she presents herself as a nude woman. And I really came around to the understanding for myself anyway that it's not just about my concern with like the Kardashian stuff is not really that it's a woman, but rather that it's used for celebrity purposes. And, and even that, I gotta say, I gotta think about that and whether or not it's where am who am I to be able to say that about her? If she wants to do that with her body, fine. I just get concerned that we jump on that ship too quickly in terms of what's being presented. And again, I think it's by and large from a male audience because it speaks to some degree mainly to a male audience. And so there's some real challenges there that I think we should be talking about in the Naturist and clothes-free community. How do we address women being able to present their perspective with their own voice rather than having men telling their story for them or using a male voice to tell the female story. And again, I want to point you to something that our editor and contributing editor Antony Hart had this week in her regular series. Now, one of the things I decided to do early on was that if I was going to address this issue, I couldn't address these kinds of things on closefreelife.com from a male perspective. I had to give that space over to a woman's voice for a woman to address issues. So we have our regular feature, Women on Wednesdays, that is put together by Antony Hart. And I think that's something that we should all be thinking about. All us guys should be thinking about. If you're going to take pictures, for instance, to promote top freedom, and you're a photographer and you're a guy photographer, how about finding a female photographer who's as good as you are, who's behind that kind of stuff, who may already been doing that kind of work, and supporting her instead of saying, okay, I'm a guy, I'm a great photographer, I'm going to support Free the Nipple by taking pictures, topless pictures of women, because your gaze as a man is different from the gaze of a woman. I think that's really important. This idea came to me when I was listening to something that about from the directors of a new show that's going to be on cable. I think it's called The Girlfriend Experience, and there are two directors, a man and a woman, husband and wife team, and the wife said, this show is a lot about it's about a call girl's experience, right? So there's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of sexuality involved, and she said this female director of the wife part of the husband and wife team said there's a real difference between when he's filming a scene and when I'm filming a scene. When I'm filming a scene, I see things that he doesn't see. When he's filming a scene, he films it from the perspective and his perspective, and he sees things differently than I do. And I think that's a really important thought and point to have, so that they can think about, we start to think about how our gaze and the way we look at things and we see things is conditioned by a lot of things, including our gender perspective. And so that's just something I think that's really important to be discussed when we start talking about issues related to women in the clothes-free community, in the naturist community, and related to nudist life and nudity.
ClothesFreeLife.com supports the Reddit community for clothes-free living. Nudism.reddit.com.
So I started off today by saying that our interviewed guest, Gingerbread or Chelsea, is been featured in several mainstream news media outlets this week. First on Vice Online magazine had an article, an interview with her, meeting the woman fighting to normalize toplessness. And then that was picked up by the New York Times, who she was celebrating that they published the photos that went along with the article without censoring them, which is an interesting and I think good thing. And our editor, contributing editor Anthony Hart, has been out on one of her on a bare-chested adventurous stroll walk with Gingerbread, and I thought, who better to interview her and talk with her about this for our show. So we're going to listen to that interview that was recorded by Anthony Hart, who was speaking to Gingerbread on Skype a couple of days ago.
I'm Anthony Hart, one of the editors at ClothesFreeLife.com, and we have today with us Gingerbread from Breasts Are Healthy.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for meeting with us. If you don't already know, Gingerbread is one of the leading voices in the Top Free movement here in the United States. And she's been doing a lot of work checking out laws and all sorts of things, like really getting into the nitty-gritty and actually knowing what she's doing with this stuff. So
that's very kind of you.
You know what you're doing. You're perfect. You're an expert. I came across her stuff via her blog and on WordPress, and we'll have links to that on the notes for this episode. To all of your things, you're on several platforms: WordPress, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. Tumblr,
YouTube. There's a YouTube channel.
YouTube, yep. That's right. How could I forget? Like, of course, there's YouTube. I've seen it. Yes, so there's also YouTube. So we'll have links to all of those resources for you all. And so we'll just get this kicked off. So, Gingerbread, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 27. I live in Maryland, sort of close to D.C., and I've been pretty active doing bare-chested walks, bike rides, just, living my life, being outside a lot for probably the past 3 years. It really kind of became important to me when I was younger than that, but I didn't really know what to do, how to handle it, what it meant. Okay. But I knew that it was something important. And so, I would maybe go bare-chested at home or in the yard or something like that, but, or, around people that I trusted and, they were on the same page as me and conversations about it, things like that. But I hadn't really gone out publicly until probably the last 3 years, and then I really started realizing how important it is and how I'm in a unique position to do it. So I've been kind of amassing this breadth of knowledge through trial and error, really, and it's been a fascinating and very enjoyable experience. And I've met some really wonderful people, like the people here at Close to Be Life. And, have just some really wonderful conversations with people that I never would have had otherwise. So it's been a fascinating thing.
Awesome. I guess I didn't even realize that you had been going bare-chested within like family and trusted circles since you were little. I know we talked a little bit about it like through email exchange, but it didn't really dawn on me. Was there anything in your youth, youthier youth, still being young, was there any event or things that sort of sparked it for you when you were itsy bitsy? Like anything in particular?
There are things that have moments that have occurred throughout my whole life that kind of have led up to all of this. So there are moments that I can remember when I was younger where I was looking at these boys. So, young as in like 4 to 6 even, looking at boys of my same age who look exactly the same as me from the waist up, and they're allowed to run around without a shirt on. And I can't, and I get in trouble. Like, no, you have to cover up. But why? And then the thought occurs, what's wrong with me? And that's a really, really heavy thing, a heavy burden that, is instilled in us from a very young age. What's wrong with me that I can't do that? There's something wrong with me that I have to hide. I have to cover it up. And I remember those moments. And, watching guys throughout my whole life, when it's hot out, and we're sweating and you want to take your skin off, that they can take their shirts off, but you can't. And I'm like, but why? It's skin. It's the same thing. And so, there were, those kind of moments throughout my life. And then just seeing and hearing the women that were in my family or that I knew that I looked up to not being able to talk about themselves in a positive manner. And you thinking, me thinking, but I love these people and I think they're great. And why can't they think they're great? And why is that wrong for them to think that they're great and to, express positive opinions about themselves? And that's something that we're conditioned. Women are conditioned that, we can't be proud. We can't be, can't be any of those things that are celebrated in men that are not celebrated in women. And that really got to me. It really bothered me a lot. And I struggled with that for a long time. And I had very poor body image, and self-esteem in, later elementary school into middle school and even into probably kind of the beginnings of high school. And then somewhere in high school, I was like, I like me. And, there are things that I don't like about my body, but it's my body and it does everything that I need it to do. And only one I get. So I'm not going to hate it. And I'm not going to hate myself just because other people seem to think I should, which doesn't make sense because they don't really want you to hate yourself. And so something clicked for me in high school, and I started getting more confident in my own skin and more comfortable in my own skin. And that was huge. And it was such a relief. And I realized that that's actually still young to be having those thoughts and to be coming to those realizations. And it's never a done deal. We still have to live in this society, still have these things that are, built into our thought processes. And every once in a while you have to go, no, that's not a helpful thought. That's not a healthy thought. It's okay. And, put it away. You can let it go. But yeah, there are some days where, I might not think I'm looking so good or something like that, but it doesn't matter because I'm here and we get to live and that's wonderful. And so that really high school kind of opened myself to myself, and big for me. So all of these little moments in my life kind of have led me to this point that I'm at now, where I want other people to get here too. And I want to be like, you can do it. Like I did it, you can do it. It's not as scary as you think it is. It's just that initial step going, I'm not going to hate myself, and I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to love myself and my body. And that's, that's this huge thing. But once you do it, it's such a relief. You get to take the world off you. You're Alice. You get to take the world off your shoulders. And so that really is part of the reason for the blog too, is just to show people that it's not this huge thing. Bare-chestedness really isn't this huge scary thing. Equality isn't this huge scary thing that we've made it out to be. And we're all people, and if we can just look at each other as humans, then we're fine. And I know it's a really long-winded answer, but all things have led up to that.
Yeah.
Ethos really is what it is.
No, that's really important. That's kind of the context that I've been curious about too, and just sort of reading your pieces and stuff like that, and also just thinking about. I don't have as much in-person experience as the next person, but mostly when I'm looking at stuff online and trying to leaf through the not so great resources, to put that tactfully, versus the resources that really are championing things. And it's really helpful to have that human context of like, where did this even come from for this gingerbread person? Like,
which is really one of my nicknames. It's not a really a false name. That's actually one of my nicknames that people actually call me. So, and it's like ended up being, something. And it was kind of cool, like a trail name, for the Appalachian Trail and stuff like that. But I use it often.
There's nothing wrong with the nicknames. I grew up with lots of them. It's actually weird when people call me by my given name. So anyway, so you talked about the motivations and different things that it means for you and where you see the potential. Why should other women care and people care? Like, I'm thinking about, for instance, some of the folks at, say, my yoga studio or folks that I work with, like, why should they care? Like, why should they really, about the Top Free movement and things like that?
Well, the Top Free movement, it's really not about who has to wear a shirt and who gets to take a shirt off. It's not really about that. It's about the equality, and it's about legal language treating women and men or whatever gender equally. That's what it's about. It's not about the shirt. It is about being comfortable for some of us. I'm very, very warm temperature person, and I am more comfortable without a shirt. Yes. Yeah. So that's how I like to be. And I like to, your body is supposed to move, and I like my body moving as it's naturally supposed to move. So there is that aspect to it, but ultimately, bottom line is, it's about equality. And everyone should care about equality, because anytime any person is marginalized for any kind of thing, it diminishes all of us. And all the equality issues that we have, be it race, be it gender, ability, whatever, they're all related. They're all connected. So when we have progress in one, we end up having progress in others. And the more progress we make, the more everything moves forward. So everyone really should be invested in any kind of equality issue, and progress. And for women, it's not about, everyone going bare chested. It's not about that. No top.
Find body positive, clothes-free friendly postcards at www.twoscoops.cards.
So there's this important issue that got raised in the first half of the conversation that I want to just highlight. The last thing she said about this is just not about taking your top off. See, this is one of the differences. It's about equality, she said. And I think that's one of the differences that men and women have as it relates to some of the issues around female nudity, female toplessness. I think sometimes for guys, it becomes just about, we need to allow women to take their top off. Ooh, that's what we're fighting for. And for women, it's oftentimes I want to be treated equally. If a man can take his top off someplace, I should be able to take my top off. So that's just one of the little differences that I think we need to pay attention to. We're going to run a little bit more of this interview, about 5 more minutes of it here. And then just want to say something about so you might be hearing some little audio artifacts on there. This was recorded on Skype, was a Skype recorded conversation. So sometimes the audio can go bad, and we just want to let you know that you're not hearing anything unusual there, that we just couldn't control that because of the connection. So let's go back to another bit of this interview with our contributing editor, Anthony Hart, with Gingerbread, who is the founder and a blogger at Bare Breasts Are Healthy, and an advocate for female equality when it comes to bare chestedness. Anthony is talking with Gingerbread by Skype.
We're talking about equality and
why people should care.
Yes, why people should care, even though they're all in their worlds and stuff.
Well, the other thing is more than half the population is female, so it affects more than half the population, and really it affects the entire population. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't treat women equally, then we have all of these unequal laws, which is just perpetuating the cycle, because we're teaching men and we're teaching boys and we're teaching little kids that all of this is correct, and mm-hmm. they're going through the same things that we went through, the same thing I went through on the beach, looking at those little boys running around, going, what? So wait, we're different? Why? Mm-hmm. And we've gone through these things periodically. Most recently with us getting the vote. I mean, women mm-hmm. haven't had the vote all that long.
Nope.
Slavery's not that long in the past. We have these things that eventually we kind of look at and we're like, okay, so we've been doing this, but it might not have been right. Mm-hmm. We should change what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We are a very, very young nation. And while we got a jump start on certain things because we learned from some of the places that we came from, we didn't learn everything. and we still have a lot of room to grow. Mm-hmm. And so we are growing and we are evolving. And so that's important, and it's important to everyone, because if we stop growing and evolving, then we get left behind. Mm-hmm. As a nation, we get left behind because other people are going to continue growing. This conversation is going on in many other countries. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's an isolated thing to the USA. Like, it's not. I get commenters from Brazil. They're having this whole conversation about gender equality in Brazil, and it's mm-hmm. and there's some other Hispanic Latin nations. There's it's going on in Britain, in the UK. There are other places going on. The Netherlands, Sweden, there are some big countries, mm-hmm. major countries, first world countries that are having the same discussion, and even second or third world countries that are having this discussion. So it's not just us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we style ourselves as the leader of nations, then we better damn well live up to it.
Sometimes I'm afraid we're gonna get left in the dust.
And so this is one of the things, equality is one of the major issues that affects everyone. So if we don't recognize that, and if we don't handle it, then we're going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. So everybody should go.
Yes, they should. And that was a really good response, just really focusing on equality and all the other types of equality as well, like linking that together. This is not just a tiny boutique topic.
All of these, there are little webs that go into everything. So, and to not acknowledge that would be disingenuous and unfair.
Yep.
And it would not then be about equality, because it's not about everyone at that point. Mm-hmm. Equality means everyone. So if we don't talk about everyone, then we're not talking.
We're not. Oops.
Sorry.
So that's our first part of our interview with Gingerbread from Breasts Are Healthy with our contributing editor, Anthony Hart. Tune in next week for the next second half of that interview. And it's just, I think, really important that the focus came around to this issue of equality. And that's what it's about. It's not just about nakedness or being top free. It's about what's equal and fair. And I think that's some of the difference. And our Talk Up Tuesday question for the week was just this idea of does Naturism and Nudism have a women's problem? And I wasn't sure where that was coming from when the idea popped into my head for that question for this week. But I think this is the thing that was germinating in my brain, in the deep recesses of my brain, having had these conversations with women and just sensing that there's a difference. There's something there that, different doesn't mean better or worse. It's just different. And I think sometimes men come at this issue of nudity and toplessness from a very different place than women do. And they think women are asking for one thing, and they project that onto all the efforts that they put into connecting with women. And then they go out front and bring a very masculine approach to things rather than asking women, how do you want to address this? How can I be the biggest support? How can I be most effective? And I think that would be something that would be really important for us to be talking about in the future if we want to expand the circle of participation of women in the clothes-free living, in naturism. We need to have more of a women's voice. It's interesting that most of the major naturist and nudist organizations are headed by women. But in the world in general and online, the male voice tends to dominate. And I think it's really important for us guys, and I'm including myself in that mix. I think it's really important for guys to step back a bit and say, hey, women, if you want to take front stage and speak to this issue, go ahead and do that. You need to have that opportunity to step forward and be able to share your perspective with your voice. And one of the things that's happening that is exciting, happening because it's happening across the Atlantic, is that the American Association for Nude Recreation, ANR, and the British Naturist organization are working together to promote having more women engaging and being involved in naturism and nudism. And so the weekend of June 4th and 5th, they are promoting across the Atlantic Women in Naturism Weekend. So maybe you know of someone who's been thinking about it but not really sure they want to get into naturism, who's a woman. You have a friend who may know you are a naturist or you live clothes free, someone who's been specifically clothes free at home maybe and wants to think about getting into more of a social situation. That would be a great weekend. There are going to be clubs all across the US and the UK who are going to have activities oriented specifically towards women. So that's something exciting that's coming up that we should be paying attention to. Well, we're just about running out of time.
Thanks for listening to the Clothes Free Living Update with Earl D. If you enjoyed this podcast, we hope you'll tell your friends. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website clothesfreelife.com for previous podcasts. This has been a Clothes Free Life production. Join us next time for another edition of the Clothes Free Living Update.
My name is Earl D. I've been your host for the Clothes Free Living Update. Stay safe and stay clothes free, my friends.